Denver Broncos, Mile High View, no commercials, no bullshit. As it was with Rich Scangarello, is going to be the same with Pat Shurmur. You're going to have the feel-good crowd, okay, the ones that are going to oversell Pat Shurmur in every way they possibly can, just like they did Rich Scangarello when Rich Scangarello came along. I'm going to give it to you straight because that's the way I roll. You know, there's no bullshit, whether you like it or not. By the numbers, Pat Shurmur is the middle-of-the-road OC. He had a season as a top 5, top 10, top 5. He was the number 5 offense. He had 2 seasons just above average and 3 seasons. These are all offensive coordinator finishing statistics, whereas offense is finished. Okay, so he had 1 in the 5. She had 2 that were just above average, and he had 3 cellar dwellers. Okay, all that really doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. Let's say Rich Scangarello gets hired as the offensive coordinator next year for San Francisco because the San Francisco 49er offensive coordinator gets hired and leaves. We'll just say this is a scenario. Well, Rich Scangarello will have better player personnel at his fingertips, and he'll be able to work with somebody like Kyle Shanahan. So immediately next year, the 2020, he'll look like a genius, and Elway will look like an idiot for getting rid of him. I'm just putting that as a possible scenario. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it could. I mean, that could happen. It all really comes down to player personnel. Okay, this whole thing with Shurmur is meaningless. And I'm trying to explain this to some cerebral fans out there. It's going to be meaningless if the Broncos don't get serious in the offseason. I'm sticking to this, whether Rich Scangarello was here or not, or Shurmur, it doesn't matter. I'm hoping that Shurmur and Fangio and the defensive coordinator, of course, that all these people, and even Mike Munchak, quite frankly, that all these people can talk some sense into Elway that this offseason they have to get serious, and it just can't be the draft. I'm pounding the table that this has to be a joint, big free agent and draft season, because the bottom line is whether you get Shurmur or anybody, I don't care who comes in, if there isn't the player personnel here to run a system that you can go into Kansas City, because that's the goal. They're the team you have to at least one victory. If you're a playoff team, you have to get one victory from them, and that could you could hold the playoff game on them. It could be a make or break kind of thing in that. But you can't be taken serious until you get upgrades with player personnel for the Denver Broncos. So, you're already handcuffed at right tackle with this whole totally, and maybe Rich Scangarello had something to do with bringing in James too. I don't know, but I doubt it, because this is so typical of Elway to go out and get a price tag on dead weight. But you're handcuffed. You're going to be screwed with. I mean, he's dead weight anyway, whether they cut him or not. I mean, he's at some point he's just not going to be there. So one of the options is, say you go in the first round and get your offensive right tackle, who eventually is going to have to replace James one way or the other. Because there is a right tackle that probably would go in the second before you could get to him, so you may have to get him in the first. Now, you could go and negotiate for a wide receiver out in Tampa Bay. I brought that up. The guy, I brought him up. You can plug him in right away, because it's a crapshoot when you bring in a wide receiver what you're going to get. New England just found that out this year. There's no guarantees in the draft, other than the draft really should be, as qualified teams do, is eventually work them up. Like, I want to bring in Conklin. He's been brought up. Was a second-round pick, but he's gone through and worked behind a 3-time Pro Bowler. That's what winning organizations do. They have good staff. They have good player personnel as starters, and that's how they can develop their draft picks. Instead of these, emergency draft situations, where we can plug him in right away. Of course, there's some cases you have to do that, and there's some cases that you need to do that. One thing I noticed in this playoff series so far are dominant offensive lines. I watched the Titans. How do you like my pick now, Calkins, by the way, bringing him in? You like him now? I watched, the Titans' offensive line. I watched San Francisco's offensive line and Green Bay's offensive line literally dictate to the teams they were playing. And Kansas City's offensive line isn't a slouch either. Okay? The Broncos better get serious with this offensive line. I'm not. If you want to go and just be, you beat the Lions. Okay, you want to feel good, and you're talking playoffs right away. Throw everything else out. You're going to talk about playoffs and these pie in the sky ideas. And sure, you may make the playoffs next year, but I'm not a just happy to be there guy. The whole Kansas City thing really left a bad taste in my mouth, and I think that's why Rich Scangarello ended up getting fired, to be honest with you. I mean, you can't have your offense pissing down the side of their leg, or the defense. And I felt that they were very intimidated, and that's got to get turned around. You got to get rid of those people. They're not. You don't want players that are there for autographs, okay? And if you, like I said, if you as a fan, if that's what you want, you're happy just to be there. You listen to your sports talk radio, your commercials, everybody that just agrees with everybody. The reason I don't have, and believe it or not, a lot of the subscribers don't agree with me. That's great. But I do have a good track record of where I'm coming from and what I'm laying out. I've got an impeccable track record. And that's why I started a channel. And again, it's not about me being right. I'm just trying to get people to take a look at things differently. But the bottom line is that the Broncos are absolutely going to have to work very hard on both free agency and in the draft jointly. We can't have screw-ups in free agency like we've had, Elway. If we're going to get this thing turned around, if you're going to give this new offensive coordinator a chance, you're going to have to give this guy player personnel. Just the same thing that you saw back in Kansas City with Alex Smith, and got all the pieces put around him. Mahomes steps in. If you're going to help Locke, he has got to have a solid offensive line. If you want to help, I'll pound the table. You had a marquee offensive line. I guarantee you Phillip Lindsay gets 1,500 yards, 1,200 yards minimum. I guarantee you that with a marquee offensive line. Offensive line has got to be the center, the focal point of this, like a drop of water in a pond and then the rings go out.